Yo, what is going on, guys, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the mathematically best builds for Childe, aka Tartaglia, and I'm sorry that this video took so long to make, or took so long to come out. I was just really lazy. I had done a Childe build guide in the past, but that was way before even Heart of Depths had come out. Now he is having his first banner rerun, so I thought it would be a good idea to revisit him. And, you know, for all the people that didn't pick him up the first time around and are now looking for a guide. First, let's go over what builds were tested and how these were tested. Now, there were a lot of builds that I tested. If you guys want to see the details for each and every single one, they are divided into categories in the spreadsheet, which I will leave a link for in the video description, as always, so you guys can go ahead and take a closer look. And I also recommend checking out the Genshin Impact Damage Calculator. Also, as always, all of these tests assume that your Childe is at level 90 as well as his weapon. There are also no weapon refinements. The talents are all tested at level 6, and there are no artifact substats taken into account because the purpose of these videos is to compare the baselines for each build. As for the method, I recommend watching this video by Braxophone, which I will link as well in the video description. He shows and explains the optimal Childe melee combo, which ends up being 3 normal attacks into a charge attack. So here in my spreadsheet, I have the damage for his first 3 normal attacks, his charge attack, as well as his total ult damage, which includes the damage of the actual hit, plus the ult Riptide damage, which is a separate instance of damage. However, if you plan to use Childe as your main DPS, your E has a maximum duration of 30 seconds, which naturally is 1800 frames. Now, your normal 1 into normal 2 into normal 3 into charge attack combo takes roughly 82 frames approximately. Your melee Riptide Slash that happens when you crit also has a 1.5 second cooldown, aka 90 frames, so unfortunately you can only get 1 Riptide proc per combo even if every single attack you do hits. But basically this means that per E, you can optimally get a max of 22 combos and 20 Riptide Slashes. So if we take a look at the builds for this, aka main DPS Childe, the highest possible DPS comes from 4-piece Blizzard Strayer. And this might be a little surprising, but not really, because Childe highly depends on crit and this set gives him a lot. Plus it's a pretty easy build to pull off since he is Hydro. Obviously, freeze comps require Hydro and Cryo, so if you pair him up with Ganyu or Chi-Chi or Kea, you pretty much have a perma freeze comp. After that, we have 4-piece Bolide coming in pretty close, however, it is less. But if you are running Bolide on Childe, you might be using Zhongli to keep that shield up. And when you have Zhongli's shield on you, the enemies will effectively be taking approximately 9% more damage per second, which makes it the strongest build for melee DPS Childe. And that's only talking about Childe. So the elemental and physical strength will also apply to your teammates' abilities, which I assume you're going to be using like Fischl's Oz and stuff like that, plus your Skyward procs or Viridicin Hunt procs will also benefit from this. So in practical use, it is a lot more damage overall from your team comp. Speaking of Fischl's Oz, firework comps are pretty popular for Childe. A lot of people run Fischl and Childe together, so I tested 4-piece Thunder Soother, and the DPS is pretty competitive, but it does lose to Bolide with Zhongli and to 4-piece Blizzard. The upside being that it can give you a lot of electro resistance, which is pretty nice. But all of these builds rely on other party members. So if you want a consistent DPS build that has basically no conditions whatsoever, you have 4-piece Heart of Depth, and that's to no one's surprise. This set has literally 0.04% less damage per second than 4-piece Blizzard, so it literally does not matter. This also increases the damage of your ult, which Bolide does not do. As for the weapons, the difference varies, but Skyward Harp is undefeated in each and every single build. It's closely followed by Ammos in most cases, but I do want to talk about the 4 stars a little bit more in depth. Here, the Prototype Crescent has the highest DPS out of all the 4 stars because it has its passive procced. However, that passive does not last 30 seconds, so once it gets deactivated, you will see a 10 to 12% drop in your damage. However, this is where Blackcliff shines because its passive has no downtime. However, in these tests, we're evaluating the extreme, which is letting your melee mode go on for 30 seconds straight, which is something not a lot of people will do because of the massive cooldown, which is why when you look at Viridicin Hunt, its total damage and its DPS look so low. But the thing about Viri is that the proc damage adds quite a lot to the total damage output of the Viridicin. So when you compare it to the first spreadsheet that I have here, where we're just comparing one rotation it nearly outdamages Skyward Harp, but if you stay in your E for too long, that DPS starts tanking. So in my opinion, Viri is the best 4-star option for Child as long as you only keep him on the field for like 10 or so seconds. Once you go beyond that, it will start to get outscaled, but that's fine because most people will swap in and out to proc the rest of their team's abilities anyways. You know, Officials, Oz is on, you know, have to proc it again, etc, etc. And if you're free to play, the same thing applies. You're going to want to swap him out every 10 seconds or so to re-proc the passive on the Prototype Crescent and keep your damage up. Of course, that's not always possible, but it's still pretty good. So in conclusion, for main DPS Child, if you have Zhongli, run 4-piece Bowlight on him. If you don't, then you run a perma-freeze comp and go with 4-piece Blizzard. And if you don't want to run a perma-freeze comp, or you don't have one, then just use 4-piece Heart of Depths. For weapons, Skyward is hands down the best option, Viridescent is the best 4-star option, and for free-to-play, Prototype Crescent is your best option. Now let's talk about Support Child. This is basically where you swap him in just to pop off huge ults, and that's it. Maybe get a couple hits in before you do, or after. And for this we have two categories. Regular ults, which will be pretty common for permafreeze comps and firework comps. For those we will take into account the actual melee ult damage, as well as the Riptide proc, and any weapon procs. And then we have Vaporize ult, so basically you proc Vaporize with the ult hit itself. For these, we're not going to take into account the Riptide proc damage, because that would mean that you swap the Child, use your E or your charge shot to apply the mark, then you proc Vaporize, and then you applied Pyro after you proc Vaporize, and then you swap back the Child and then ulted, which is just super unlikely. In 99.9% of cases, it's basically impossible. So for vape comps, the highest damage you're going to get is going to come from 2-piece Wanderer's Troop and 2-piece Noblesse, and the best weapons in this case being the Skyward, followed by the Stringless. For free to play, I also put in the Prototype, but in this test the passive is not active in any case because it's very unlikely. Again, the setup would be too much. You would have to get a charge shot before you apply Pyro, and then, you know, reapply it, and then ult with Child. So it's just not going to happen. But it still remains as the best free-to-play option. For non-vape comps, aka you're just raw ulting, it depends. If you're using Skyward, Viridescent, Blackcliff, the Alley Hunter, or Stringless, then the best build is 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Gladiator. But if you're using Amos, Rust, or the Prototype Crescent, then 2-piece Heart of Depth and 2-piece Noblesse is better. This is due to the proc damage and high attack scaling on those weapons benefiting more from Gladiator. And I know it might be a little bit confusing, which is why I've laid it out for you like this, so I hope that helps. But there is another. If you're running a fireworks comp, or basically a comp where you have access to Electro Charge, or you're using Electro on most enemies, 4-piece Thundersoother actually has the highest non-vape ult damage. Not by a lot, but it's still worth mentioning, and I hope that clears things up. Now, before I end this video, I want to go over Alley Hunter specifically just for a sec, because this is a pretty unique bow. Now, basically, what Alley Hunter does is that whenever your character is off the field, it gives you a 2% damage buff stack every single second, up to 10 stacks, aka 20% damage at Refinement 1. However, when you swap them in, they'll start losing 2 stacks per second after the first 4 seconds. So that means that if you're at max stacks and you have this bow on Child and you swap him in, you'll have 20% increased damage for the first 4 seconds, and then you'll have 16% more damage for 1 second, then you'll do 12% more damage the second after that, and then 8% more damage the second after that, and then 4% more damage the second after that. And then you'll have no buffs for the remaining 22 seconds of your E if you're gonna let it go all the way. Which puts the total damage of this weapon pretty dang low on the table. But again, that's only if you go the whole 30 seconds with the ult. It's gonna get outscaled pretty dang hard by everything else. However, if you're just using Child in a hot swap comp, meaning you just swap him in, use one rotation, and then ulti, it actually becomes the highest damaging 4-star option. But this basically remains its only use, and I just wanted to point that out and hopefully help you guys out if you did roll on this bow and you're getting it, wondering if it's any good. I personally think you should just put this on your official and put something else on Child, but if you don't have anything else, for example, if you have a Stringless in this, then definitely give this to your Child and then give the Stringless to your official. But yeah, I just wanted to explain all that. And well, there you have it, guys. That is my Child build guide. I hope that I made it somewhat easy to digest. There's a lot of information. Child is a very cool character, lots of mechanics and niches and things that are unique to him. So I hope you enjoyed this video or found it useful or at least entertaining. And shout out to all my friends and supporters and patrons. All of you guys mean the world to me, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Take care.